Hey guys, Lizardlea here for Four Heavenly Beasts, day 25! Here is the progress from day 24. And as a refresher, day 24 was July 25th, 2020. It's August 2021. I'm sorry. I promise I will never do that many Christmas ornaments ever again. Not for you guys, just for me, for my own mental health. That was maybe my physical health. Like, my hands were really hurting by the end of that. Yeah. I just want to cross stitch some Four Heavenly Beasts, so let's get to it.
Alright, so we are back with Four Heavenly Beasts. This is very exciting. It's been over a year. I apologize, but we're here, and David is here. So, all is good. But we're going to talk about a video game. So, if you're not interested in that, I apologize. But we're going to talk about Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous, which is the sequel to Pathfinder Kingmaker, which I have discussed in previous videos. And I think you were there for a couple of the talks, because you told everybody about Pathfinder and D&D and yada yada yada. Do you want to give the rundown of Wrath of the Righteousness, now that we have both played a little bit?
Yes.
And by a little bit, I mean Liz has put in hundreds of hours.
I've only put in 100.
I'm pretty sure I'm almost to 200 at this point.
So, just like the previous game, Pathfinder was based on D&D, which is a pen and paper RPG, which then got a digital one, and then they made Pathfinder, which is a spin-off of D&D, and that got digital games too. Kingmaker was the first one. I don't think it's nearly as good. Wrath of the Righteous is the second. You don't need to play the first one. I suggest you start with the second. It's way easier and more fun.
Although, it also has the kingdom management that Kingmaker did, but it's easier. In the previous one, you had time limits, and it was like, you have 30 days to get this done, you have 5 days to get this done, and you specifically have to be with your companions for these 5 days, and it was very time constricting, and this game does not suffer from that. It's very nice. Like, there's still things where it's like, oh yeah, this decree is going to take you 5 days, but you can do other things in the meantime. You can leave the kingdom and do other things. And it's very nice to do that.
So anyways, plot-wise...
Sorry.
I know. We'll get there. Plot-wise, you are just some random schmo who's been dragged into a city with a wound because they found your body out there. And this city is far away from the front lines of this war that's been going on for 500 years, where 500 years ago someone somehow opened a portal to hell, and demons started pouring out and slowly expanding that portal to be bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's called the World Wound. So most of this culture lives in a constant state of war with the demons, but this city is far away enough from the front lines that they have usually been able to live decently normal lives. They're throwing a fair that day, and it's protected by a dragon. She's a silver dragon. You're like, hey, are you a dragon? She's like, yeah, I'm a dragon. And you're like, cool. And she's like, I'm not going to show you. So then, lo and behold, things happened, and spoilers, 5 seconds later into the game, the demon lord of the entire army, called Descari, he's like a giant locust, comes in and kills the dragon.
He takes a scythe and he just chops her head off.
Yeah. And thus starts your adventure as he starts attacking the city. And you
get your first choice.
Yeah, you get to choose whether you get a scroll or a crossbow, and then you fall down a hole.
And David and I made different choices.
Yes, right from the get-go. And that actually mattered later, which was really interesting. We'll get into all that. So, from there, you do stuff, but the basic idea is you're going to rally the troops, rally the people of the city, and try and fight off this demon invasion. And so, like any RPG like these, you've got good and bad choices. You can do good and bad things. But what adds an extra layer is that, unlike many of these games, which only go from levels 1 to 20, and if you don't play these games, level 1 you're kind of a peon, level 20 you were right adjacent to a god, and again, by level 10 to 15 you're already just superhuman insane, like you could take on a small city easily. Could you pause?
That's a phone call.
Sorry
Okay.
about that. So, as I said, you're adjacent to a god, blah, 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 blah. In this game, they've added extra levels that are off to the side. They're their own separate thing called mythic paths. And as you progress through the game, you start getting these mythic powers. And at first, they're kind of generic and just good. But then you get to make a commitment to what path you're going to go. And there's like 9-ish paths. And there's some good ones and some evil ones. And it's interesting how the game adapts to the choice you made, because these choices really severely affect the main plot. Liz and I chose both fairly normal paths as far as badly as they affect the plot. We're getting a fairly standard story, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then I happen to know that 2 of the other paths pretty heavily, actually 3 at least, very heavily adjust what happens in the game. And then there's a secret, not path, but ending that you can get that also kind of heavily adjusts what happens in the game. So there's a lot of ways to really change what's going on, and it makes your choices feel like they really matter. And in short, you're trying to, fight off this demon invasion, but whether you're doing that as an angel or Nazada as a force of good, or, a demon or a lich as a very questionable force of good.
Questionable? You think a lich is questionable?
I mean, both can be played as a full evil thing, or as a kind of like, well, yeah, I guess I'll fight the demons because I want to be a lich and that would be get in my way sort of thing.
Okay.
How hard you commit to the evil is even still somewhat your choice. The only one that's objectively, yes, I am
Swarm that
evil,
walks.
is Swarm, and I think maybe Devil. I'm not sure where Devil falls on that scale. But yeah, no, there's a lot of cool stuff you can do, and it's just very neat to see how the story changes, and it feels very grand and epic because it does a good job of kind of changing the scope of the game, because when you start out, you're like in a, you're fighting through a small little dungeon underground, and then, okay, now I'm trying to save a city, okay, now I'm leading armies trying to save this entire place and really the world, if you think about it, because otherwise, if I fail, the demons will invade. And it feels like a good progression. So it's a real fun power fantasy thing with a zillion knobs and buttons and whistles to customize your characters and your companions and do all the stuffs. So, you want to get into characters, or where do you want to go?
Well, I can't talk too much about the game because I am level 20 and you are still in like chapter 2?
Chapter 3.
Chapter 3.
Of 5 or 6, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm level 20.
Yes. I'm like 15, but
Yeah, but the difference between level 1 and level 10 is nothing compared to the difference between level 15 and level 20.
Yes, I know. So
I have millions of experience at this point.
Yeah. So
But okay, yeah, we can talk about companions.
yeah, let's just jump into the commands, because I think it's one of the best parts of the game is the characters that you have. So in these games, you have a party of 6 characters that you get to romp around with, and then you have extra. There are more characters in the game that you can recruit, though, who will sit at your camp and just chill out.
And you could switch them out if you're ever like, oh man, I really need somebody who is just a tank. I'm gonna switch out my my wizard who can't take a hit at all for my slayer who can take a hit and wears heavy armor.
Yeah, and so when you start, as an example of a basic companion, you meet a woman named Sela, who is okay.
She's a paladin.
Yeah, she's a paladin, but she's not your standard paladin, who are normally like, yes, good is good, and I am good, and all that is good.
Oh yeah, no, some of her best friends are thieves.
Yeah, because she's an ex-thief, and she came up through, to give more context, this war has been going on for 500 years, so everyone's kind of some way a warrior, and they have this contingent where it's like, hey, you got caught doing repeated petty thievery. It's no longer just like, oh, you were thieving to survive, or, well, I guess even then that still happens, but whatever. So we can throw you in prison, or you can join the Condemned, which is a unit of soldiers who will fight on the front lines, but you'll be forgiven your crimes, and you have to go fight in the war. And so she came up through the Condemned, and, gave her direction and strength and power and blah, 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 blah. And so now she's a paladin, but she still understands that, good people are good, and
life is rough.
Yeah, life is rough, and it's not fair to hang somebody for trying to survive. So she's decently nuanced, but I think in general this game is a little weaker on the good guys. A lot of their plot lines, thinking about it, are the obvious good guys.
Yeah, like the objectively, these are the good guys, these are the neutral people, these are the bad guys.
Yeah.
The good guys are so boring.
They are, for the most part, boring. Yeah, I think she's the most interesting of them that I can think of.
Okay, so who all falls into the good guy category?
Sociel.
Sociel.
Yeah.
Lan.
He's neutral, technically. But, I mean, he acts
still generally
like a
does
goody
good
two-shoes.
things.
Yeah.
He's usually a pretty good guy.
No,
I would say Lan is the most interesting to me, then. You don't have him in your party.
I don't, so I can't comment.
But no, I really like him.
Woljif is...
I'd say Wolf is neutral.
Yeah, Arushula is kind of an interesting
She's
concept.
doing her best to be good. So yeah, she's also...
Ember, I'm still... you're farther than me, but I don't know where to go on that, because
I don't know. Like, okay, so just my impression as, you know, the literal outsider watching the game, I get the impression that she's good. But then as my character interacts with other people and talks to other people, I get the impression, like, maybe she is neutral? Like, I don't know. Because there are some people who are, like, super suspicious of her, and there are other people who are, like, super defensive of her. So I'm kind of just, like, I don't know what to think. I don't know if she's good. I don't know if she's bad. I don't know if she is, like, just true neutral and is, you know, walking that line. I don't know.
Yeah, so, in general, the good characters are a little less interestingly written. There is an unknown character named Camellia, who I am less interested in as well for various reasons. Her twist is kind of obvious.
Oh, it's 100% obvious.
I saw apparently some people don't. I read it. I read and hear about people who like didn't see it coming, and I'm just
How?
like, yeah, I know.
Did they skip her dad's mansion?
Actually, I think that was the more subtle thing, honestly, compared to her dialogue.
Oh.
Yeah, no, because her dad's
I
mansion...
feel like all of it together was just like, oh yeah, this lady's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious. So, either way, point is, there are some really interesting written characters.
Darren is my favorite.
Yes.
And because he's my favorite, you have to play the game to find out, because I don't want to spoil that, because it is amazing. Because legit, you guys, I went from, like, I hate this guy, I want nothing to do with him, to now... He is never outside of my party. I love him. He is romancing me. I am not romancing him, and I'm here for it, and I know more about his backstory now, and I will die for him. And I don't know who I will die for first, him or my dragon, but I will die for someone.
Yeah, and so, with that in mind, it's worth noting that when Liz met this character, she hated him.
Oh, yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's just good writing, because...
Now I love him.
Yeah, like, they do a lot of good job, or they do a very good job of putting nuance into these characters, especially the evil ones. Like, again, the Paladin was...
Paladin.
Yep, there I did it. Was, you know, oh, she's kind of nuanced, but the air quotes evil characters are way more nuanced. And one of my favorite examples, and Liz's as well, is named Regil, and he is a gnome Hell Knight, so he is a whole 2 feet tall, 3 feet tall, of incredibly serious armor-wearing Hell Knight. Hell Knights
we call him Reggie.
Yeah, Hell Knights in this world are basically people who believe in a higher law and will enforce any law they believe is just, even if that law is horrific. Yep. And so in most games, they're the bad guys. Unquestionably so.
In Kingmaker, it would freaking destroy your kingdom if you allied with them. It was so brutal.
Yeah, because they're just going to go around and enforce, like,
and
just like,
oh,
you stole bread, we're going to whip you 60 times.
Yeah,
and
you know,
if
we're
you
going
do
to
it
chop
again,
off
we'll
one of
kill
your
you.
hands. Yeah, like, it's bad.
That is the kind of person they usually are. However... What's interesting about this is that, one, you're fighting demons, and demons might easily be worse than Hell Knights. And so when this happens, you get a mission to go save the Hell Knights from one of their people who's managed to escape by taking off their armor and coming to you and saying, hey, we need help.
And you can say no.
Yes. And so you can go down and meet these Hell Knights. And when you first see them, the first act you see this character who's supposed to be in your party, if you want him to do, is he kills 2 wounded soldiers. And so you're like, immediate impression is, oh, he's evil, he just killed a bunch of wounded soldiers. And then his explanation for why he killed the wounded soldiers is, so we're currently being attacked by gargoyles, and it's very clear that they're kidnapping troops. And these soldiers aren't even his soldiers, they're just clerics that are also fighting with the Hell Knights. They are trying to capture us and interrogate us and torture us. And we do not have the ability to care for these people. We can't heal them, we can't save them, and dragging them with us is going to kill more. Mm-hmm. So I just solved the problem. I gave them merciful deaths.
Yep. So
really
they're not going to get
brutal
captured
decision.
right now, and we can make it out of here alive.
And maybe he's wrong, but you can at least understand the line of logic. And they make very clear throughout the course of the game that this is a person following their beliefs, and he does not take any particular joy in causing pain. He's not like, ha ha ha, yes, I killed somebody. It's usually, oh, you were regrettable or weak, you know?
Yeah,
and
like
even,
that it needed to be done.
And in another example of how that worked, the guy who came and got you, who abandoned his armor, he's like, so you did come and get us, you know, so you went and got these people to help us, and he's like, yes, sir.
But you abandoned
He's like,
us.
but you abandoned your armor. Yes, sir. Did you know you would find somebody when you abandoned your armor and abandoned the fight? No, sir, I just assumed that if I walked in this direction, I was likely to find an ally. Okay, you were commended for finding allies, and for abandoning your armor, you get 60 lashes. Like, it obviously not really the fair outcome, but you understand the logic of how he's approaching this.
Well, because the thing is,
those are the
there's
rules.
Absolutely no proof that he wasn't abandoning them and just happened to stumble upon these people.
Yes.
There's no proof. He could just be saying that now to save face. So yeah, I understand the lawful punishment part of this. I get that.
So yeah, it's very...
I don't know, like one of the other ones that I liked that we discussed was there's an officer in the army who has a history of having soldiers he has trained run off and just get killed. He has a history of this. It happens a lot. You meet one of his little underlings and you get attached, and then lo and behold he leaves and he dies. And Reggie was just like, man, if I was in charge of him, he would not be in the army anymore. Yeah. Because he is a horrible officer. He was not upset that this kid ran off and got killed. He was upset that the officer in charge of him did not train him properly to prepare him for all of this.
Well, and most importantly in this case, the kid didn't believe the officer was doing the right thing. That's why he abandoned him. Not because the officer was doing anything necessarily wrong, but the kid was driven to try and find power to stop things. And the officer never properly conveyed to the kid, like... Now, it's not necessarily 100% the officer's fault here. Like, you have to... They're playing in the nuances of this. Like, well, is he incompetent, or did he really try his best?
It has happened several times before.
Yes, but
that's why I understand where Reggie's coming from.
Yeah, and that's the whole point. Is they don't ever make it...
Black and white. Yeah,
they often don't make it black
and
white.
Yeah.
And in...
Just like Reggie, because he's bleaching.
Yes, and the other fun thing that Liz just mentioned is that, yes, he's bleaching, because gnomes have this thing where a normal gnome character is very obsessive. They find something and they want to know all about that one thing. That is their life, that is their world. But they also, if they get too focused on one thing and they don't have adventure and whimsy in their life, they literally start to have what's called the bleaching occur, where they lose color in their hair and it will kill them. So by going on adventures and having more surprises and whimsy, they live longer. And he's clearly bleaching and just does not care.
Nope.
Because he's like, so what? I'm doing my job. And it's very much like, isn't your job literally killing you? I do my job. Like, I'm here to fight demons and I will fight demons.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they just do a very good job of writing these characters and keeping them interesting.
Well, I mean, not everybody, but most of them.
Most of them, yes. So Ciel is a stick in the mud who's not very deep, at least that I've seen, and I know you hate him.
I can't stand him.
Camellia is...
terrifying. I think she's terrifying. If I met her in the real world, I would run.
I mean, and she's supposed to be, obviously, and it's just, I don't know what they're doing with this. I haven't gotten far enough to maybe comment, but what I've seen so far, I'm not impressed. Like, there's a twist, but you see it coming a mile and a half away. And
if you've paid at all attention.
And then on top of that, like, each time there's another twist, it's still like, the moment they resolve one of the twists, you go, yeah, but obviously this. So
exactly.
Like, yeah, and so... The interesting thing about it is that this is a character that can be in your party, and they're not doing what they normally do with characters like this. I don't want to go super deep into it in case anyone does bother to play, but the way they handle her is not traditional for that kind of character. They commit to the idea. They don't wishy-washy with it. There's other characters who you can like change who they are, make them fall or redeem, and this is not one of them. And I think that's interesting, but the execution leaves things to be desired. On the other hand, like to the counterpoint of Regil, who would never trust a demon, there is a legit demon that you can meet. Mm-hmm. And then you can decide, or well, not decide, but you can help her on her path to redemption or entice her back to being full.
Succubus.
Yeah. And
Man, I really considered romancing her for a while, but then Darren started romancing me.
yes, and that was also interesting because often in these games,
You have to
instigate
the spark.
everything, and he, at least for the female characters, even though he'll romance both, or maybe I just shut him down hard.
Yeah,
early.
I think it might have been that you shut him down earlier.
Yeah, I think I shut him down hard early, and so he will actively go out of his way to try and romance you, which is actually kind of nice to see because normally characters in these games are very passive about that because they want the player to choose and make their choice, and he's like, nah, screw you, look at me.
Yeah, he's like, look, I got you a bunch of flowers. We should go on a not a date. That was my favorite date that I've had in a game like that, where he was just like, this is a not a date. And like I loved it. Every single time he referred to it, he was like, "Oh, it's a not a date."
With flowers and chocolates and not flowers and not chocolates.
It was great.
So yeah, they're interesting characters, and it keeps the story interesting. At the very beginning, you make a choice between two different characters, and
we made different choices.
Yes, and you can definitely get both characters, and I think you could have if you had not killed one of them.
I didn't kill her, Lan did.
Yeah, I think I've confirmed there's a way for her to get out of that alive.
Really?
Mm-hmm. She can definitely...
What do you have to do?
I don't know, she can come back in Act 5 on your team.
She what?
She can come back, she'll run away there, but she'll survive, and then she'll come back in Act 5 on your team.
Maybe, see, I kept thinking, like, maybe if I don't put her in my party, but I felt like it wouldn't trigger if I didn't.
No, that's definitely not that. I haven't looked into how, but I know it's possible.
Okay, I'll have to look into it for the next one, because I do like Wendy.
Yeah.
She's a very interesting character.
Yeah.
It's...
And so to give some...
I don't want.
Yeah, to give some context here, Wendy and Lan are
Mongrels.
the first characters you pick between, and yes, they're mongrels. Mongrels are descendants of the original Crusaders who started fighting this war 500 years ago. And those Crusaders got so messed up fighting the war, they're literally, like, infected by the demons, in a slightly different way than tieflings, if you happen to know what that means. So,
yeah, so Wendy is part cat, part spider.
Part something else, yeah.
And then Lan is literally, he looks like Two-Face, but it's his entire body. His left side is a lizard, his right side is a human.
And he's also got goat horns.
And he has horns, yeah.
Yeah, so they're all, like, weird
Yeah, like,
quasi-animals.
you can look at them immediately and you're like, you're not human.
Yes. And so they live these really miserable lives in these caves underground because they were like, no one knew they were there. They didn't know they were real. They'd been hiding. And they have spent their entire life basically being just
Sheltered.
hunted.
Yeah.
Yeah, hunted and abused, and they have short, tragic lives.
Oh, yeah. They live to be, like, 10 years old is pretty freaking old for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so it's brutal. And so you're making a choice right at the beginning between these two characters, and I guess we can spoil that because I'm going to go up to...
Pretty early.
I'm going to spoil up to where I'm at, but again, if you like anything we're talking about at all, mute me and go play it. But if you do, you probably already know about it. So, at the very beginning, you find this sword, and it's the beginning, and you start, like, glowing magic, super bright light. And they're like, oh my gosh, you're the chosen one, hooray! And
You
Lan,
speak to an angel.
who's kind of naive, but, you know, in a good guy way of like, we can now beat the bad guys. He wants to go back and tell his village, hey, this is the sign we've all been waiting for. It's time for us to come up out of the ground and tell the world we exist and say, hey, we're descendants of the Crusaders and we're going to go take the fight to all the other people.
Yep.
And Wendy, who is very clearly like Lan's girlfriend-ish thing, even at that point, they kind of had like that bickering going. They weren't close,
They're like
but
best friends.
Yeah.
I feel like I mean you learn about it. Their romance, they did have a romance in the past.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it was necessarily actually romantic.
Yeah, or just
or
whatever.
just, you know, like, you're my age.
Yes.
We're friends.
You have 10 years to live.
Yeah.
So either way, Wendy kind of pulls you inside and goes, hey, look, when we get back to town, don't tell them about this because these people have never been trained to fight. Most of them are not like me and Lan. They don't know what they're doing.
So if we leave, they're all going to get massacred.
Because we're going to try and leave. We're going to try to go through these caves. They're all going to die.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's a legit argument. There's some interesting stuff going on here. And I think this is a really good thing because they let you make a choice here, and it's kind of clear you're choosing between the characters because you're going to make Lan look like a fool if you lie, and he's going to feel bad about it.
And you're going to make Wendy really angry if you tell the truth about the sword.
Yeah, because, oh, well, I might be getting these people killed. And you don't know if Wendy's right here. Like, it's a legitimate argument, and they're about to go through this maze thing to save other people and blah, 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 blah. So I chose to go with Wendy originally, and I told you why you might want to go with Lan instead, and you even admitted you're not sure what you would have done if I hadn't told you.
Yeah, if you hadn't told me, I think I would have agreed with Wendy, just because I had met the mongrels, and I was like, yeah, like, they're not ready for this fight. They're going to get massacred.
Yeah. So in my game, I betrayed Lan, and said, hey, no, there was no light bright. What is he talking about?
What are you talking about? There's no sword.
He's just seeing what he wants to see. He's like, you tell him they have found the sword, but not the light right there. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Anyways, and he gets really upset because he's like, I know you guys are lying. Fine, whatever. Screw you. And he walks off. And so now you have to go through this maze, which is your first little dungeon. And Wendy's like, okay, it's time to go. And we're like, okay, we're going to go rescue them. She's like, if we find them, but like the maze is dangerous, and I've been training for years to go through the maze, and I can barely do it, and they're probably dead. And as you go through the maze, you very quickly go, doesn't really look like a maze, does it?
Looks like a mansion underground.
It looks kind of like a cultist lair. And Wendy's like, yeah, well, whatever. We call it the maze. And, well, turns out it's a problem. Because what it really is, yes, a cultist hive. And what Wendy's been doing is taking cultists into the maze and then making them eat other people.
No, not cultists, mongrels.
Mongrels. She's been taking her own people into the maze, and most of them have died, but those that don't die eat the flesh of other creatures and then go crazy and become more powerful if they survive. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, oh, you're really evil, right? Mm-hmm. And so the cool thing this game does, which the previous game did not do, is it lets you make your choice again. It goes, okay, we gave you a choice, and we did kind of lead you down one way, and we didn't make it obvious what that way was. And now you are presented with the consequences of your choice. Are you sure? And it lets you choose again whether you want to be with Wendy or Lan. And I still chose Wendy because I'm going a demon route, and I thought that was going to be interesting to see how the game justified, hey, we're fighting the demons, but the guy who's going to save us is here. Oh yeah, what's he? He's, He really looks like a demon. What's he do? Well, he's got red skin and horns, and a tail.
And he lets mongrels eat
other mongrels,
smears and other things.
Yeah, to be more powerful. But I'm sure it's fine. But yeah, you can make your choice here. And what's interesting about this is obviously Lan is the good guy in this moment. But it's very clear, even I think at that point, that Wendy's entire worldview is based on a society that has lived in a kind of way that most people never have to live, where if you're ever weak for a moment, you die.
Yep.
And so from her point of view, she's been strengthening her clan. She's all about survival of the fittest. I will find whoever is more powerful and work with them and help them because it will help my people survive. And it's also clear a little bit then, but especially as you go on, that she doesn't want to be that way. That, like, she does actually have normal feelings. She can be a good person. And it's really interesting because through various methods throughout the game, depending on what you do, you can actually make her a nicer and better person. She won't ever be a good person, but she won't be a feed my friends to my friends person. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a really good example of how the game kind of introduces its concepts and also shows off the characters, because, like, you could easily just make her the bad choice when she's the one who's all about power at any cost. And she is all of that, but she's also the bad choice that regrets that that's the way that it is and just doesn't have the strength to admit that because they think that's showing weakness and then that'll get them killed.
Yep.
So you're allowed to teach them, like, no, it's okay. This is how the world works. You don't have to be that way. And I think that's a lot more interesting than a lot of games where they're just like, nope, this is the one that eats people.
Yeah.
Which, bold move to open with cannibalism of a sort. So yeah. And then, yes, I told Liz, like, hey, by the way, you're going to get a choice. You're probably going to regret if you choose one way over the other. Because her way, she actually gets to save them all. And my way, well, they're in my army now, and they're really strong. They don't think very well, but...
Yeah, mine, I told them, yep, I have the sword, here's the light, I'm going to show it to you again. And Lan was like, yeah, awesome! And then Wendy sent me the dirtiest, angriest look in the world. And after that, we were told we had to go sleep in the tent. We slept in the tent. I woke up. Wendy was gone. So we went running, found the cultist stuff, got to the end, and we see mongrels being forced to eat other creatures. And then Wendy pops in and is like, yeah, that's cool. And so I kill everybody that's evil. And I'm like, you know what, Wendy? You're banished. Get away from me. I never want to see you again. I let her live. And David has not gotten to this part yet, but I got Wendy back for a little while.
Well, I got to my equivalent part.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you did meet up with Lan again.
Yeah, and so there's two very different ways this can go. So when I meet up with Lan, it's because Wendy's going back to tell the mongrels, hey, it's time to come to the surface and fight because, you know, we're gonna take advantage of the fact that they can somehow interact with the demon blood in such a way that makes them very powerful, but also can make them lose their minds. But Wendy did that and managed to fight it. So she's trying to find the ones that can fight it, and otherwise you're going to be a berserker on the front lines doing all sorts of damage to the demons, but we're crusaders and descendants of crusaders, and that's what we're here for. And it turns out Lan is stopping that because he's teaching them to meditate and control themselves. And so you can go you have to go and deal with the fact that Lan is doing this. And it's really interesting, because if you try to take what I would consider the easy way out from most other games where it would work, where you go, well, no, we'll let Lan do that, and it's okay, Wendy, we don't need this army, she or Lan will kill the other one, depending on what... I brute forced this and tried a whole bunch of different things just because I was curious, and there's 9 out of 10 ways to go through this. One of them is definitely dead. And given that one's in your party, you generally will have it be Lan, because, well, he's not part of my team, and Wendy is an all-star. So instead, you can, through finagling it, get it to where Wendy will fight Lan one-on-one, usually wreck him, and then you can tell she doesn't want to kill him, but is about to because she believes she has to. And if you finagle it right, not by saying, no, don't kill him, but by saying, he has to understand that he's getting in the way, they kind of set it in the light of well, look, this is what our people are, this is what we've trained for, this is what we're doing, and you're making them weaker by doing this, and in doing so, they're probably going to die. And this isn't nice, and this isn't great, but when has mongrel life ever been that way? If the people up there aren't going to accept them, they're not going to love them, they're not going to like them because they think they're monsters, but at the very least they're going to be strong ones, and maybe we can fight for our freedom. It's not a nice thing, but it's way more nuanced, and by going that way, he'll kind of come to terms with the fact that he doesn't like how the world is, but he's also not going to stop this, and then that way they don't have to kill each other. And I thought it was really interesting that it wasn't just, oh, make the good choice and good things happen. It's no, you've got to... Well, actually, because he's lawful, appeal to his lawful side and get him to understand that, the world isn't all cake and rainbows. This is how it is. And that's how he gets to get out of there alive without Wendy putting an arrow through his eye socket. As opposed to your side, where
I had to go back to find the mongrels, and they were like, oh no, our little trader, Trader, the person who sells things, was kidnapped by Wendy, and Wendy said we cannot leave the caves, and we're not going to leave without the trader because she's an important part of our party. And so I try and find her, and what I find is Wendy eating the trader. Trader is dead and Wendy's eating her. So we fight. We obviously crush her in the first round. Lan has +8 initiatives, and he has 7 attacks, so boom, 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 she's dead. He can keep shooting. She will be more dead. And I have the choice to kill her, let her go, or to join me. And I was like, okay, girl, join me. And Lan was like, what? That's... what? But Commander. And I was like, sir, no. And
she ate my friend!
Yeah. Because he is lawful and I'm his boss, he listens and he's like, okay, I'm not happy about it, but okay. And I get her in my party. And I continue on. And she calls me mistress, and she, basically worships me because I curb stomped her. And that is when I learned, her loyalty will always just be with the strongest person in the room. If someone ever defeats me, she will immediately switch sides.
Yes.
And then, when I lose her, that is in the next chapter that you are not in yet.
Yeah. So, we'll see what happens to me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we'll talk about more in the next video because we're at the end.
And
Did you miss me?
yes. That is the end of 4 Heavenly Beasts, day 25. I got 3 hours and 22 minutes of footage, so not a lot, but started late and it's already getting really dark out. But I mean, it looks like I made a lot of progress. Kind of. I don't know. I'm getting there. I might stitch tomorrow. We'll see. Depends on how everything goes. I would continue stitching, but my webcam doesn't want to focus, and it's doing that scratchy thing. Like, maybe I need to get a new webcam. I don't know. Yeah. Do you have anything else to add of importance, handsome man?
I missed you.
I already said I missed you, and you totally ignored that comment.
Well, because I wasn't supposed to talk anymore, because I'd already annoyed you.
Oh, is that what all of that was?
Was it not?
I love you.
The most.
No, I love you more than the most.
When are we starting all the Christmas stitches? No, nothing.
I'm going to stab you
Yeah, you
1,000 times with a needle.
could be stabbing anyone you're on.
Which isn't very much. That's like, I get that done in like, what, an hour? Like, subscribe, share, comment, all that jazz. And I'll see you guys in the next video, which is gonna be 4 Heavenly Beasts Day 26. Yay!